Great. So like I said, today's session is being recorded, and that does mean that we are going to make this publicly available for anybody who was unable to make it today. As we know, there's been a few conflicts. It's the beginning of the year and things are busy, but really excited to welcome you all today to the Technical Assistance Program information session at the Boston MPO. My name is Jen Emiko Kincannon, and I go by Jen. I'm the manager of the multimodal planning and design team here at the Boston MPO. I lead a team of very talented transportation planners and designers. They're all passionate about everything from safe streets, active transportation, freight planning, and beyond. You're actually going to meet a few of them after you get an overview of the program from me today. And again, the point of today is that we are talking about technical assistance, which is just one of the many ways in which our team works directly with communities within the region to support your planning needs. So on the agenda for today is an introduction and overview from me first. We'll talk a little bit about the application process for technical assistance at the Boston MPO, and then I'll turn it over to my colleagues to talk through some really interesting example projects that might pique your interest, things that may already be on your mind, or things that may be new to you and you decide that you really would love to explore with us here at the MPO. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we'll leave some time at the end for questions and answers. I think in the meantime, we would love to know where you are coming in from today within the region. So if you want to quickly introduce yourself within the chat, just your name and the town that you are calling in from, I think that would be really exciting for all of us who are presenting to see. So let's get started. So what is our technical assistance program? So it's a program that provides planning, design, and analysis services to municipalities, regional transit authorities, and transportation management associations. The goal of the program is to support the implementation of multimodal transportation projects that enhance accessibility, safety, multimodal connections, mode shift, and economic development across the Boston region. So functionally, that means that if you have a project that needs additional planning and analysis, perhaps prior to a TIP application, or prior to an application for design and engineering and funding that you're looking for, this is a really great time to engage us because we can do that planning and analysis work alongside you to get you there. The program looks a little bit different than it has in years past, where you may remember that there was two separate technical assistance programs, one for municipalities and one for transit authorities. We recently went through the process that combines the two and actually streamlines the application process, making it very easy for you to go online to our website and submit an application of interest. I'm going to drop a link. It's going to be the first of many links we drop during this webinar today. That actually just is directly to the technical assistance page on our website, and it includes the button to apply. So what kind of projects are we looking to fund? Well, given the diverse expertise of our team of planners here, we have a lot of different ideas about the kind of projects that we could collaborate together on. Everything from safety-focused planning, policy, and design of projects that align with the Vision Zero action plan, which you'll be hearing a little bit later about from the Vision Zero project manager. Extreme heat mitigation strategies for all road users, that is building on the No Heat project, which you'll be also hearing a little bit more about from one of our transportation planners. The expansion of multimodal infrastructure, such as blue bike stations and thinking about where to site stations. Planning for safety and prevention of bike lane obstructions. Support for piloting cargo e-bike programs for last mile delivery. Safety improvements for travel to schools and civic institutions. Transit service planning projects that improve operations or service levels for regional transit authorities and transportation management associations. Again, this is a very broad list. And if there's anything on here that starts to spark your interest or you recognize as a project in your town that you've always wanted to attempt, please reach out to us. The first step can be just an introductory conversation. And later on in this webinar, I will drop a link to an opportunity for you to just schedule a quick office hours with our team so we can start that conversation. In terms of an application to submit and for technical assistance, again, it's very easy. We ask that you just go online. There is a Google form that you can fill out with some simple information, starting with a point of contact, a short description of your project in 500 words or less. We'd also would love to see an explanation of how you see this project impact in improving the transportation system, especially at a regional level, given that we are a regional organization. So an estimated timeline. And then, of course, we would like all our projects to be aligned with long-range transportation goals, so you can start to select which one of those your projects potentially aligns with. After you submit this information, we will set up a time to chat with you about you and your project. And if we decide it's a good fit, at that point, you will be set up with a project manager from our team to actually start the work. I should mention here that our TA program is a little bit different from other agencies within the region in that we do not ask for a match. Instead, we ask that you just provide us with staff time on your end and that time to coordinate with us and work alongside us, whether it's from the engagement stage to the actual recommendations and being able to review those. And if you are at the very beginning stages of figuring out what kind of technical assistance project you want to work on, we also have additional resources which can help you identify what kind of project would be appropriate for your community. A few of those include the Vision Zero dashboard, which is our web-based application to help communities locate priority corridors along the high injury network. Like I said, the Vision Zero project manager is actually going to be presenting a little bit on that towards the end of this webinar, so you'll have some time to take a look at that together. If you're interested in curbside management, you should check out our guidebook, Managing Curb Space in the Boston region, and that defines best practices for planners working to improve curb management practices. We also have two recently completed discrete studies here at the MPO. The first is Parking and Bike Lanes, Strategies for Safety and Prevention, which looks at the sources of bike lane obstructions and thinks about design, enforcement, and policy interventions appropriate for towns within our region. And then also exploring cargo e-bikes for last mile delivery, which is a comprehensive review of research on cargo e-bikes and their use cases, applications, and operational challenges to develop recommendations and best practices for pilot programs and long-term adoption across our region. So I encourage you to look at all of these resources. They are within the technical assistance website link that I sent out earlier, listed under the resource section. So this is enough for me. This was just an overview of the program, but next is we're going to be actually hearing from some of the staff members that actually have worked on these projects or are interested in working on these projects. So some example projects that you're going to hear from. The first is going to be hearing about the Quincy Blue Bike Station location study, which is data analysis recommendations for Blue Bike Station siting in Quincy. Intersection improvements in Sharon, data analysis and planning recommendations for safety improvements for travel to schools. No Heat, which is looking at data analysis, engagement, planning, and conceptual design for extreme heat mitigation strategies for vulnerable road users, which builds on some portfolio of work that we've been working on here at the MPO with a recent MVP grant. And then finally, Vision Zero, planning, analysis, engagement, and design support for safety projects, which builds on our most recent Vision Zero action plan, which is done at the regional level and is currently in draft stage, soon to be formalized. So with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen and pass it off to my colleague, Kyle Casiglio, who's going to be talking about the Quincy Blue Bike Station study.
Thanks, Jen, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kyle Casiglio, and I'm a Senior Active Mobility Planner here at the MPO. So as Jen mentioned, I'm going to be talking about a couple technical assistance projects that we've worked on recently. And first, I'm going to share some of the work we did with the City of Quincy to identify and prioritize locations to put blue bike stations. If you're not familiar with Blue Bikes, it's the regional bike share system for Greater Boston. There's over 500 stations across 13 municipalities at the moment. And this study originated when Quincy expressed interest in joining the Blue Bike system. So we were able to provide support in doing data analysis to identify and prioritize where within Quincy would make the most sense to actually locate the stations. Our approach to this analysis sought to balance best practices for bike share station siting with municipal priorities. So in this case, the primary goal of introducing bike share was to improve connectivity to the 4 Red Line rapid transit stations that serve as a transportation spine for the city. So we worked with municipal staff to develop a suitability scoring methodology that we use to rank every census block in the city with a goal of finding 20 census blocks that would be strong candidates to support a bike share station, while also ensuring that they supported people traveling to and from the Red Line. So the scoring methodology used several inputs based on data that was available to us at the regional level or provided to us by Quincy. These inputs are based on factors that we know to influence the success of a bike share station based on prior research that we've done at the agency. We were also able to leverage concurrent planning efforts by both the City of Quincy, which was undergoing a multimodal master plan, and from Mass DOT, which was working on a 3A corridor study in Quincy at the same time, to see areas that the public had expressed support for bike share or improvements to bicycling accessibility. So working with data analysts from our analysis and applications team, we applied this methodology to every census block in the city, which resulted in this map here. You can see the output of the scoring, where you can see high potential census blocks in green and lower scoring blocks in pink. If you're familiar with the geography of Quincy, this probably looks pretty intuitive to you. You can really clearly see that central spine I was describing from North Quincy moving down to Quincy Center, where you see the large dark green block. And there it kind of splits, following both 3A to the east and continuing along the Red Line corridor to the south. So as we've said, the goal of this analysis was to improve connectivity to and from rapid transit. So we couldn't simply lift the top 20 scoring blocks, or you would just see clusters of blocks all lumped together. So we imposed some rules on the analysis to make sure we were getting a dispersed network. And that leaves us with our final list of prioritized blocks. The ones you see green here are the ones that are proximate to the red line stations, and the pink ones being for the neighborhoods and destinations that are around the city. So you have the beaches, a lot of the neighborhood community centers, those types of areas. Now, each of these blocks scored well for a variety of reasons, and the specifics of that we don't need to get into right now. But in terms of what we delivered to the city, it's a series of maps showing the output of the analyses and the rationale for why each census block received the score that it did, as well as a technical memo outlining the process, the methodology, and recommendations for next steps, such as pathways for funding. The methodology that we used is transferable to other municipalities while remaining flexible enough to be modified for the specific context in a given city or town. We could use it for expansions in existing member municipalities as well as those that are looking to join the system. So this is work that we're really excited about. Active transportation is a big emphasis area that we're really hopeful to do some more work on. With that, I'm going to pivot to some different technical assistance work that we engaged with the town of Sharon on, focusing on some intersection improvements to support safe routes to school. Sharon's a suburban town a little bit southwest of Boston with a population of about 18,000, so a very different municipal context than Quincy. This study examined the intersection of Pond Street, East Street, Quincy Street, and Massapog Avenue, which is located near the geographic center of the town, and it's the northeastern corner of Lake Massapog. The intersection is located just south of Sharon High School and about half a mile down the road from Sharon Middle School. And there's been a traffic circle there since the 1960s. The primary concern in this case that the town approached us with is that there's a significant public confusion about who has the right of way within the intersection. Southbound drivers that are trying to make a left turn onto East Street and northbound drivers entering the traffic circle from Massapog Avenue don't really have clear guidance on who's supposed to yield to whom. So the intersection's proximity to the two schools also introduces a lot of young pedestrians into the intersection, and as you can see, there's only one crosswalk, only one safe and legal crossing. Town staff also shared with us that they have concerns about speeding through the intersection, particularly by high school students when school lets out. And finally, we noticed that there's a trailhead between Pond Street and Quincy Street, which has no safe or legal crossing to access it, and which is supposed to connect to Lake Massapog. Alongside these concerns, the town also shared with us two conceptual design proposals for intersection reconstruction that would have removed the traffic circle and replaced it with either a signalized or stop sign controlled intersection, which we evaluated for safety and operational performance. So for this study, we collected traffic counts and speed data at the approach to the intersection, and we found that traffic is pretty evenly split coming from Pond Street between East Street and Maspog Avenue, with minimal traffic on Quincy Street. So in line with the town's concerns, we did also find concerning levels of speeding, particularly on Quincy Street. Notably, we also observed 85th percentile speeds that were far out of line with the 20-mile-per-hour school zone speed limit that's in effect just north of the study area where Sharon High School is located. This data was also consistent with what we observed during a site visit. And on that site visit, we saw several examples of that confusion with the right-of-way that we described before. We also noticed that signage was potentially exacerbating the confusion. You can see on the right of this image a state law yield to rotary traffic sign, which is placed south of the intersection facing northbound drivers. This sign implies that traffic going northbound should be yielding to southbound traffic making a left onto East Street, when in fact, drivers have left the rotary already, and that left turning traffic should be yielding to northbound traffic. Now, fortunately, despite observing many instances of this hesitating confusion, we were able to confirm through both MassDOT and the Sharon Police Department that this confusion has not resulted in a crash during the 5-year period that we looked at. So while we experienced many near misses, there actually hasn't been a crash because of this confusion. So based on the field visit and the data that we collected, we made a number of short and longer term recommendations to improve the intersection. Uh, First of all, moving that state law yield to traffic in the rotary sign north of East Street to clarify that it is the people who are driving south that are supposed to be yielding to those traveling north. We recommended implementing crosswalks and rectangular rapid flashing beacons, or RRFBs, across Pond Street to connect Lake Massapog and the Massapog Trailhead. And in the longer term, incorporating bicycle facilities throughout the intersection, incorporating traffic calming elements to help reduce speeding. And finally, we did assess both of the intersection reconstruction conceptual designs. However, given the lack of instances of crashes at the intersection, we did not find that either was going to pencil out from a cost-benefit perspective. So this concludes my portion of the presentation. I'm going to pass it along to my colleague Carmen, who's going to be talking about how we plan to provide data analysis, engagement, planning, and conceptual design services for extreme heat mitigation strategies for vulnerable road users. Thank you all very much.
All right. Thank you, Kyle. Um, my name is Carmen Baskoff. I'm a transportation planner with a multimodal planning and design team. Um, and I'm going to share some information about a project we've been working on, which is looking at the impacts of extreme heat on people walking or people biking. And heat may not be the first thing you're thinking of when you think about transportation challenges, but through this project, we're really looking at ways that extreme heat can be a real barrier to active transportation in our communities. So this project is called Neutralizing Onerous Heat Effects on Active Transportations, or No Heat. And as I mentioned, this is focused on heat risk for people walking and biking. This particular project has been funded through a $1 million MVP grant from the state. And our project so far has had kind of two stages. So the first stage involves creating data sets which help us identify the highest risk heat areas in our region for people walking and biking. And then building on those data sets in stage two, we've been developing heat mitigation pilots at priority locations in our partner municipalities. And this is a collaborative effort between us at the MPO, our academic partners at Georgia Tech, and then the partner municipalities who are Chelsea, Everett, Revere, and Framingham, as well as a number of community-based organizations. So this project is really kind of trying to answer the question of how do we look at heat on a human scale? And certainly there are existing data sources that can tell us about heat geographically. Land surface temperature is a widespread available source. And this can tell us things about, for instance, disparities between neighborhoods, but it's not available at a very high resolution. And to understand heat at the human scale that's relevant for people walking and biking, we really need to be able to capture differences to the level of, a difference between a shady street and a sunny street a few blocks apart, for example. Land surface temperature also is from satellite data, so it captures that kind of top-down, looking at places like rooftops. This again tells you things about what's going on in the area, but that's not actually places people spend a lot of time walking and biking. So for this project, we've developed a new data set that uses a measure called the Universal Thermal Climate Index. So this measure helps us better capture what heat feels like to a human. This is shaped by many factors beyond just temperature, things like shade, for example. And I think we can see this in this example on the map of Commonwealth Avenue. In the UTCI index map, we can see the cooling effect of the shade trees, which obviously makes a pretty big difference in the heat for people walking or biking there. And we're also able to generate this data at a much more fine-grained resolution, so at 1 meter square. This really helps us better understand specific route segments, and you can even see the difference between, say, one side of the street and the other side of the street at different times of day. So just briefly, this Universal Thermal Climate Index, or UTCI, is a model that takes into account the way the human body experiences heat. So it uses factors like shadows from buildings or trees, wind speed, of course, also temperature and humidity. And then all of that is fed into a physiological model of how our body processes heat based on those factors. So this gives us a much better indicator of how heat is experienced in humans. I think we all can understand that, 90 degrees in the shade on a breezy day feels pretty different than 90 degrees in the straight sun with no breeze at all. And we can also use UTCI values to understand the potential health impacts of extreme heat as well. So for this project, we looked at data from 2 hot days in the summer of 2023, and then we calculated what the UTCI value would be. So that would be what the temperature would feel like to a human outdoors. And we calculated this for every square meter in the Boston region. You can see that on the map on the left. So then we apply these UTCI values to the roadway network. This tells us what the temperature would feel like to a person walking or biking on each of these roadway segments. In the second stage of our project, within the 4 municipalities that are our partners, we took this UTCI data and we were able to compare those UTCI values on roadway segments with volumes of people walking and biking. So this helped us identify areas that are both really hot and also have a lot of people walking and biking. And we use that combined information to help select priority corridors, as you can see on the map on the right. So these priority corridors ultimately fed into our selection of pilot locations in our phase 2 in some of these municipalities. When we initially applied for this grant, we imagined a broad list of what quick build interventions could potentially look like that would benefit people walking and biking. We explored a wide range of possible interventions, ranging from shade sails to bus shelters. In this project, we really see these small pilots as testing grounds for longer term, larger solutions. We know we can't plant a whole canopy of trees that will provide sufficient shade for someone walking or biking and have that be ready in the next few months before our grant period ends. But our hope is that people will experience these smaller pilots that provide shade, and then the feedback from these pilots will help inform longer term planning efforts for the cities we're working in. So what can we help you with? What I've been describing so far is the work within our MVP grant, but this is a growing area of work for us in terms of understanding the impacts of extreme heat on active transportation. We'd love to talk with you about what this looks like in your community, potentially through a technical assistance project. So this could involve looking at the regional UTCI data set that we've created to help you identify priority corridors for heat mitigation, and also look at conducting engagement to ground truth that data through tools like walk or bike audits. We can help with planning and conceptual design recommendations for quick build or long-term infrastructure to help mitigate heat for active transportation users. And finally, we can support identifying funding for heat mitigating interventions. I should also mention we are going to be submitting for a new round of funding that expands this work. And so if communities are interested in applying with us as a partner, that is also an option in addition to doing a TA project with us. I encourage you to get in touch with us. So thank you. I'm going to hand it off now to my colleague, Ali Clayman. she's going to be sharing a brief overview of how to use our new Vision Zero dashboard to inform selection of safety projects.
You guys see the slides, okay? Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Allie Clayman. I'm a principal planner at the Boston MPO, and I have been managing the Vision Zero work for the MPO. So we're excited to talk about our new Vision Zero dashboard. We hope that it can be one of the key ways that we continue to work with municipalities to implement our regional Vision Zero action plan or local Vision Zero action plans that are going on. So we built this for municipal staff and leadership. We developed the dashboard for municipalities to be able to do a deep dive into their specific crash data, understand locations of concern in terms of crashes and risk, and really start to be able to connect those things to actions in the plan and best practice designs and solutions. This is the landing page of the dashboard, and I'm going to walk through each of the four main sections briefly. So this is the Understand Crash Patterns page. This is where all of the crash data lives. One of the main elements of this page is the ability to zoom into the data for one municipality. And then on the left, there are several different filters that can be applied to look at specific crash severities or crashes that involve specific collision types. And a user can click on one crash and bring up the box on the right that has a lot of information about each crash, including things like the day, time, weather conditions, users involved in the crash, contributing crash factors. And then you can also overlay the high injury network that we developed as part of the action plan analysis with the crashes to understand the specifics of the serious crashes that have taken place on priority corridors. And along the bottom of this page are other tabs that present charts to summarize the data. This is a look at the Who tab, so you can see things like the ages of people involved in crashes and location near a school or in a community of concern area. And then just another example of some of the layers that are available to add. This is added bus and transit stops here, so you can start to see the location of crashes and priority corridors near key destinations and vulnerable road user generators. And the next section of the dashboard is the risk section. We call this Identify Dangerous Locations. And either looking at the regional or municipal level, a user can select the specific risk type they're interested in and see primary and secondary risk locations. So this is showing Arlington and some of the high-risk locations for lane departure crashes. And this is the Hear from the Community section. So the information that's in here right now is the feedback that we got in the stakeholder input map that we used during development of the action plan. And this is still open in the current dashboard, so people can continue to enter comments and safety concerns. And then the last section is a list of best practice resources and guides from USDOT, MassDOT, and the MBTA, and municipalities in our region. Eventually, we'd like to expand this section and explore connecting it more closely to recommended interventions and actions in the plan. For now, it's a list of resources and links. So we don't just want to hand you a tool with this dashboard. We want to hear from you. Is this useful? Is there data missing or something else that could make this more useful for your roadway projects and safety work? Please let us know. Through the Technical Assistance Program or other MPO programs, we want to work with you to select dangerous locations and plan and design some of the safety interventions like Kyle and Carmen talked about. And we also hope that the dashboard can be useful to you in federal, state, or other regional funding applications. So please check it out. It's on our website. I can put a link in the chat and get in touch with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Allie. So with that, I'd love to open it up to questions of anybody in the audience today that you may have around technical assistance, whether it's overall about the program or if it's about specific projects and you just kind of want to use this opportunity to ask. I should mention just one more thing, which is that applications are rolling for the program. So you'll notice that when you go into our website as well. But we do want to give priority to applications submitted by March 2026, as we do try to complete everything within the federal fiscal year.